Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome. This is Ed Reiner, and this is the Daily Dose of Mind Stuff. Having some weird issues with my internet. I threw that starting soon slide on there because some weird stuff was going on, but I think I've got it figured out. I'm not positive, but we'll see how we go. So this is your Daily Dose of Mind Stuff. We are continuing on today with Bob Proctor. I've got I think maybe 2 or 3 videos left on this morning study that I've been doing, and we're going today with Bob's going to be talking about the 2 ways to change a paradigm. We've been talking about paradigms. This whole thing is centered around paradigms. What a paradigm is, it's a mental programming. It's a multitude of habits that controls our behavior, which is our actions and produces the results. And in order to improve the results we have in life, we want to change the paradigm. So in this segment, Bob is going to briefly go over how do we change a paradigm. There's 2 ways actually that you can change a paradigm. So let's get on to Bob, and I'll see you guys for the recap.
Now, there's only 2 ways to change a paradigm, just 2. One of them is the constant spaced repetition of ideas that are essentially opposite to the paradigm. And I've told you about that time and time again. If you take information and record it, and you listen to it over and over and over again, you'll be able to repeat it. That doesn't mean you're going to do it. But keep listening to it every day, every day. You program it into your subconscious, you'll automatically start doing it. You will defy all the intellectuals. You not only get into a beautiful vibration and attract what you have to attract, you will affect the thinking of all other people because of the vibration you're in. Constant spaced repetition. Now, there's another way. Very few people use it for good reason. And that's the personal experience of an emotional impact. 9/11 was an emotional impact, not for me, but for people that were living in it. Usually emotional impacts are of a negative nature. We were thinking about that one time. I was thinking about in a plane going to Asia, and I thought, God, it can't all be negative. There has to be positive in the impact. And I started to study, you got to get obsessed with an idea. And then I thought obsession is a negative concept. And I thought, well, it can't be a negative concept. Lloyd C. Douglas wrote a book, The Magnificent Obsession. So I thought, hell, the magnificent obsession. So I looked up obsession. An obsession is a persistent, disturbing preoccupation with an often unreasonable idea. That's what an obsession is. A persistent, disturbing preoccupation with an often unreasonable idea. So I thought, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to get some guys together that are pretty smart guys, and we're going to create a seminar that'll have an impact on people's minds. And we did the $1 Million Form, and that's where the chicken soup came out of it. But all kinds of great things come out of that. That was it was phenomenal. We had just some of the best teachers in the world. We charged $7,500 to go to it, but it cost us $10,000 to have you in it. So volume wasn't going to change it. We were blowing our brains out doing this. But we're having such a good time, we blew our brains out for a while, and then we stopped doing it. You know, well, that's life, isn't it? Now look, I want to show you how repetition works. It is illogical to listen to the same thing over and over again, but that's how I changed my life. It took me 9.5 years to figure this out. 9.5 years. I kept listening to the same recording. The white line represents the sound of a record playing. The red line represents you listening. Remember I said listening is emotionally involved. So that line there, the white line it's representative of the sound of a recording playing. Now watch this. Watch the screen. The red line represents you listening to the recording. So you'll go along and listen, and bang, an idea hits, and off you go on a thought trip. And you're up here on a thought frequency. You are not listening. You hear it, but you're thinking about that idea that hit your mind. And you think about it for a while, and then you finally come back down and you start listening. And then all of a sudden, bang, another idea hits you, and away you go on another thought trip. Do you know that you could listen to the same recording 1,000 times and only think of the specific idea once? Now watch. You're going to ask, how did you get programmed in the first place? You were programmed as an infant. Remember I showed you? Subconscious is wide open and the idea just going in. Well, when you're listening, that's the way your mind is. When you're listening, you're not thinking, you're listening, you're just listening to the message over and over and over again. That's why this works. You see, the odds of you listening to the same idea every time is pretty remote. You may be listening to it there, but the next time you put it on, the idea back here hits you. God, you're thinking about it. When the first idea comes up, you only thought about it once. Can you imagine where you'd be at if your parents told you when you were a little kid, your name's Bob, and I'm only telling you once, so don't forget it. You know? Think about it. They tell you over and over and over and over and over, and you keep calling them by name, and then one day the kid looks. Now, if there's a crowd of people and you yell, Bob! All the Bobs turn around. It takes a while, though, to get the mind programmed. We got to program ourselves for the good that we desire.
Another one to watch over and over again, and this explains why. The repetition of an idea over and over. And I love how when Bob is explaining that last part about listening and a new idea hits, and each time you're listening to something and that line is going and you have an idea hit and you go off on a thought trip, every time we listen to it, it's like we're hearing something new because we missed those spots before. And then he relates it to being a kid, and when your parents say, you know, your name is Ed, and that's the only time we're going to tell you, and it goes over and over. I think back to my children and how we program them, train them through repetition. My wife whistles, and she can whistle just, you know, on a whim, really loud. So there was one time when the kids were young, and I forgot, I think it was either my youngest, my eldest, Alexis, or it might have been Alexis and Jordan, my two daughters. I have three. They were running, or one of them was running towards something of danger. I'd have to ask my wife exactly what it was, but quickly my wife whistled to get her attention, and she stopped and turned, and my wife thought, huh. So she always would do that. She would yell their names, whistle, and through repetition, how we learn everything to this day. And my eldest is 20. My youngest is a junior. They can be anywhere in a crowd, and she can whistle, and their heads will pop up, and they will turn and look. Now, as Bob said, if anyone else was conditioned that way growing up, they would have the same thing. But that's how we learn things. That's how we change these paradigms. I read this morning, was in with the other consultants with the Proctor Gallagher Institute in our private group, and one of the consultants was talking about a client that they had that wanted to skip a lesson because they felt that they had heard it enough. Because when we go, we facilitate a program called Thinking into Results, and it is a 12-week process that we go through, and there's a lot of repetition, but for good reason. And Bob just explained why. Because these ideas, And our paradigms that we have were not built overnight. It was something that was programmed into us through repetition over and over, or as he said, through an emotional shock. He used 9/11. We use the COVID, another emotional shock that changed paradigms. Okay. Governments and things know about this sort of thing, and they use negative emotional shocks all the time to change paradigms. So, but this person had said that their client didn't know what to do because their client wants to skip ahead and they felt that they have learned it enough. And that's the thing. We never can have this stuff too much. It's the repetition of over and over and over. And just the fact that someone is saying that I've heard this enough, I've listened to it enough, I'm ready to move on. That's the paradigm talking. That's the paradigm saying, yeah, you don't need to know this. That's the reason why you need to listen and listen to it even more, because you're going to pick up ideas. The paradigm will fight you, and it's a little evil little crap that's going to tell you why you can't do something, why you shouldn't. It's going to bring up, it's like you've got this file cabinet and these little guys in your subconscious mind, and every time you go to step out and do something, they're going through the files, picking up all the times that it didn't work in the past or you failed in the past, and they're reminding you, you remember what happened last time you did this? You're going to step out and do what? You're going to go live for 100 days? Are you crazy? This is the type of thing that happens, and we need to learn to tell the paradigm to shut the hell up and to move forward. And through the repetition of doing these things and moving towards your goals, it's what's going to shift these paradigms. And like Bob said, listen to something over and over, record it, read it, write it. Bob, up until his death, was reading Think and Grow Rich every day since 1969. Every day. The repetition. He could recite that book backwards and forwards, but he knew the process of repetition and how to change paradigms. We do an exercise with our clients where you write with your left hand. You have a phrase, an affirmation that you write with your left hand every single day. I've gotten a book that's this thick that's filled. This is the book currently that I'm working on filling. So the repetition. Now there's a phrase that's not all left-handed. There's certain things that I write every single day. I do my morning gratitude in there, and then I write my goal and a couple other things, but I do have my left hand exercise that I do every single day because it creates a fair amount of discomfort writing with your left hand. And when you're changing a paradigm, it's going to be uncomfortable. So we want to embrace that, because we know if we're changing a paradigm, the door is opening to what it is that we want. And that's the key, is you have to know what you want. And we've talked about this before. So I'm going to leave you with that. Watch that video over again. Watch all these videos over again. That last segment will explain why I keep telling you to watch these videos over again. I watch these videos and other things over and over and over. I've picked up the habit of what Bob is taught, of reading something over and over and over. And I used to never read when I was younger. I would read comic books, but I didn't read for enjoyment, really. And I don't read for enjoyment. I read for knowledge and to improve myself. And now I read. It's funny because Bob says when you get into personal development, you start to study yourself, you start to become a reader. And I read a lot now. I've got books over here on, and if I spun my camera around on the bookshelf, I've got a whole bunch of books, and I'm constantly buying books, and there's ones that I haven't even started yet because of the knowledge and the effect and change that it can have on someone's life. And when you read something, and with what Bob has taught and we've shown with the stick person, it is the key that fits everything together. So, when Bob had made his change, he didn't know what the heck happened. And it took him 9 years to figure it out, like he said. And that's when he also got the idea from the stick person, from his mentor, Leland van der Waal, and showed him this stickman concept. But when you start studying and you learn the stickman concept from the beginning, everything automatically fits and it makes so much more sense. So we'll go into this more as we go. This was day 32 and we've got more to go. So I hope you're enjoying these, whether you're live with me or if you are watching the replay. I got to learn to jump over to the comments. I was just reading through because I have comments on there. So sorry. Yes, I started a little bit late today. I got to remember that there's a comment section. This software that I'm using for one person to navigate all of the little things like this, to pick up and remember to take it down, get some taking used to, especially with one person. But now that I've got two screens, hopefully that will alleviate some of that. Although I find myself looking at the other screen and getting distracted a little bit. But so anyway, that's it for today. I will be back tomorrow. Should be about the same time, about 8:30ish Mountain Time. I had a little bit of internet issues this morning, but I think that's all fixed. So have a great, wonderful rest of the day. And I will see you tomorrow.